Hey, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. This is Ainaya Allah with the beloved truth. Today's lesson is going to be, I'm going to try to make it quick. It's just information about the global economic collapse domino effect. To show you what's actually happening on a global standpoint when it comes to the powers of the world and America losing their power and their grasp on the global economic stage, and the only thing that they got left is the military, their military might, and that's going to lead them into World War III. So the guy, was just explaining in this interview that the brother at Tazwam gave to, he put it on a group meet and, just wanted to, cover small points, because we talk about this every week, day in and day out, damn near every day about World War III amongst the brotherhood and how it's transpiring and things that's taking place. We had the election last night. Donald Trump won. Okay, so we can, for the most part, we can see ourselves going into a global economic crisis. All right, that's why it's a domino effect. And he's going to get into, because he's an expert, he's going to get into what's actually taking place. All right. So I'll play this. By the way, the guy's name is Harley Schlanger. I'll play this and I'll go into some scriptures to edify you, brothers. I'm doing it a little bit different today because I don't have these applications on the computer working. Okay. They're not. They basically crashing on me, so I had to use the camera, and Lord willing, you brothers be edified. All right, so without further ado, all right.
Everything around the world is all interconnected. It's not just one without the other, and we mentioned this in other times that we spoke about Syria, about Libya, Lebanon. Now Syria is a complete mess. Right now, it looks like Russia and the Syrian government, they're making a push to take back Aleppo. And I know Aleppo is a very strategic area, and the United States doesn't want to lose Aleppo. But what we're seeing right now is the U.S. is using a lot of propaganda because they're losing ground. Russia and the Syrian government, they're destroying the Islamic State. They're hitting al-Nusra. They're hitting al-Qaeda. I don't even think they're all moderate rebels. I think they're just all terrorists.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, we know this is all also dependent on the petrodollar because they wanted to get into Syria, maybe then go into Iran, control the Middle East, keep the petrodollar propped up. What happens now? Where are the U.S. going to do at this point? Because they're not even supposed to be in Syria. I mean, they're in Syria, mapping out a piece of Syria, building bases. The French are building bases in a sovereign country.
The U.S. is there illegally in violation of international law. The Russians were invited in by the Syrian government. But you have this irony where you have a president who says that Assad should not be the leader of Syria. And as Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, asked, when did Obama get Syrian citizenship and a right to determine who the president is? Look, this is
all right, and this is just so I'm a Lord willing, I'm not trying to make this alone, but as the points go, I'm just trying to bring in some scriptures, to edify, so my first scripture is basically who can make war with the beast, all right, which we know the beast is NATO, all right, but America works in cahoots with NATO, okay? So, like I said, Salaki, because I ain't got my phone, so I can't do it over the phone. The recording device on the computer is down, so I would have to just use my camera, So all I'm doing is countering Satan, countering Satan so I can, push the truth, man. Because that's what this is about. Okay. Oh, Salaki. I'll just go to this one for the sake of time. This is Micah 2:2. It says, and they covet fields. All right. So you can see, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. All right. So, and that's what the American government, all right, which is the whore that rideth the beast. Okay. She's coveting fields. All right. I start at Micah 2:1. It says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. They covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. And that's what the so-called white man is doing, because you might say, oh, well, Obama's the president, but Obama doesn't run anything. He has leaders over him that basically tell him what to do. They tell him what to do, who to strike, who to put sanctions on, so on and so forth. So this is really headed by the so-called white man and his westernized infrastructure, his westernized philosophy, his democracy. Okay. It says, therefore, verse 3, Micah 2:3 says, therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family do I devise an evil, from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go haughtily, for this time is evil. Okay. And that's the times we're heading into now. Okay. These times are going to become more eviler, and you got guys out there that they take it as a game. But you got a economic expert telling you what's going down on a global spectrum. So like the Lord said, man, and let me see if I can get that real quick, because a lot of guys ain't paying attention to the time. They want to ward it off as though we're fear mongers. We sell fear, or this is too deep for them, whatever the case may be. But it's just a simple truth, man. It's the simple truth, man. And there's a lot of brothers that do it as a sincerity to warn and or admonish brothers so they can get themselves right, or increase their faith in the Most High, while Yahweh Shai, okay. So Salaki. Like I said, oh, here we go. This is Matthew 16:1. It says, the Pharisees also with the Sadducees came, and tempting desired him that he would shew them a sign from heaven. All right. He answered and said unto them, when it is evening, ye say, it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and lowering. O ye hypocrites, ye can discern the face of the sky, but can ye not discern the signs of the times? A wicked and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall no sign be given unto it, but the sign of the prophet Jonas. All right, because Jonas was put in the belly of the fish for 3 days. So like Yahushua, he was put in the tomb for 3 days. That was the sign, basically. Him dying, that was a sign that they had to discern what time they was living in. That was a sign that the Mosai was given. But our people, they seek another sign. They seek other signs. They here it is. You have the truth here, and the men of the Lord that's pushing the truth. And Salaki for getting into these other, points, but they're relevant. So you got the Most High with his prophets pushing the truth, and you got Jake, just like a nigga would do. When that truth comes to them, they look at it as though, they basically do what niggas do. Whenever a so-called Negro or so-called Latin, have that healing form that they need, they always, how can I say, they always push it away. They can't even believe their own people telling them what to do, or neither will they, for the Lord's sake, get together in unity and basically, and get ready for the Lord's coming. They don't even believe what, the Most High have given them to begin with. That this is the sign now is the prophets out there prophesying. Because this was done. Millennia ago. So. Just that point, I'll get back to this, all right?
An extension of a geopolitical doctrine, which goes back to the Project for a New American Century, the neocons who were responsible for the Iraq War, the Paul Wolfowitzes, the Rumsfeld, and others. And what was their view? Their view is that with the end of the Cold War, no country or bloc of countries can be allowed to challenge the dominance of the U.S. and its allies in using free markets as a source of loot to prop up their banking system. And so that's what the idea is. That's what Obama says about why the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, instead of the Chinese proposals, because he said, we have to write the rules. This is a unipolar world asserting itself, and the Russians and the Chinese in particular had the gall to say, we don't want to go into your world. When Putin was asked, why don't you buy Eurobonds, Putin said, well, we don't eat other people's spoiled food. All it does is give us indigestion. And
all right, so there you go. You got the other nations coming against the Western stronghold. That'd be America, the NATO, the EU, and those countries are going to turn against America. Everybody's going to turn against America because America is slow dragging the global economy. Okay, with their debt bearing note, which is the reserve of the world, which is slugging the economy along. So Isaiah chapter 14. Okay, and let me see. I'll start at 9. Oh, no, 8. It says, Isaiah 14:8. It says, yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no fellow is come up against us. Okay? And that's America. It says, but here's the counter. It says, hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. That means destruction. So destruction is going to meet America at its coming. And what is coming when it comes into the fruition or into its new world order, okay? It says, because all these countries are entering into the global new world order, okay? It's just that America's going to be destroyed, okay? Because it's going to go to war with all these countries so they can uphold their the westernized standard of the world. Or the imposing of the westernized standard of the world, okay? It says, it stirreth up the dead for thee, okay? Even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations, okay? So America's bullying of the world is raising up all the kings of the nations, man. The kings of these nations are getting tired. And that's why he's going to mention about President Rodrigo Duterte, the president of the Philippines, saying to hell with America, and him, insulting Obama, man, because that time is coming where America is being looked at as basically being loathed, you know. So it says, all they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows, the worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee, all right? So the pomp, America's pride is coming down, okay? America's pride is basically vanishing, man, all right? And that's what he's explaining.
Even with the sanctions and everything else being done against Russia, the Russian economy is in relatively good shape. They have very little debt. They're starting to revive a machine tool sector and an industrial capability. The Chinese economy, you keep hearing the horror stories, and there are problems in China. Are they growing too fast? Well, I don't know. They've lifted 250 million people out of poverty in the last 12 years. They're building things. They're building new cities. They're building railroads and power plants in Africa. So this new paradigm that's coming into existence is a threat to the collapsing transatlantic system. That's why the United States is, and by the United States I mean Obama and the main media and literally both parties, is so anti-Putin. Because Putin won't play by the rules of a collapsing system. And much of the world now is turning against the United States. Obama was the odd man out at the G20 summit in China.
All right, so if a lot of you guys, if you're not familiar with who Putin is, that is the Russian president. And everything that China is doing, Russia is doing is according to prophecy. All right, Ezekiel chapter 38. And I'll start at 1. It says 38:1. Ezekiel, it says, and the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against them, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. It says, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. All right. Persia and Ethiopia, Ethiopia, and Libya, with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, in the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and thy company, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. And that's what's happening to over there in the Middle East. Russia's becoming a guard to who? Persia, which is the Iranians, which are the Elamites. All right, okay. And Gog and Magog, that just represents Russia. Okay, and this is a parable prophecy that haven't taken place yet. All right, it says in verse 8, it says, and after many days thou shalt be visited in the latter years. See, in the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. And that's talking about the kingdom. It says, thou shalt ascend and come like a storm, thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands and many people with thee. And that's Russia going into this World War III. It says, thus said the Lord God, it shall also come to pass that the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. All right, and thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest and dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates, to take a spoil and to take a prey to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations which have gotten cattle and goods that dwell in the midst of the land. And that's of Russia versus America, okay? Because America is the place without walls or fences, all right? All right, basically America is open to any attack, okay? So back to this.
Even the Philippine president called him a son of a bitch and said he's not going to meet with him. So, and the Philippine president said, if we want to talk to the Chinese, we'll talk to the Chinese. We don't need the United States to talk to them for us. So we're seeing an eclipse of American influence because of the failed policies economically, and then the military policies to try and cover up for the failed economic policies. And I can tell you this, the Russians and the Chinese are not going to back away. They saw what the U.S. did to pull off a coup in Brazil to get rid of Dilma Rousseff, but they're not going to drop the BRICS initiative. They're not going to drop the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. They're not going to drop the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. You've got much of the world moving in the direction of the Chinese and the Russians, of infrastructure, of science, of technology, of educating their youth. And in the United States, we're turning our country into a cesspool. So, I think the key challenge for Americans is not to succumb to pessimism, but to actually look at what the Russians and Chinese are doing is they're borrowing a page from our book. The space program in China is directly modeled on what JFK did with NASA. What the Russians and the Chinese are doing with rail goes back to what Lincoln did, to unify our continent and build a continental power in the United States based on new technologies, at the time steam engine and steel. So, are we out of new ideas in the United States? Or are our only new ideas how to make digital components smaller and smaller? Or can we recapture the spirit of NASA and the spirit of discovery and the frontier? And that's the challenge for us. And I think that what we're doing here in Europe is we're having a series of conferences where we're bringing people from all over the world to sit down in front of the Germans and the French and say to them, look, why don't you join us? Join us in this enterprise. Drop the policies of geopolitics of London and Wall Street, and let's join hands to defeat terrorism and to rebuild the Middle East, just as an example. So I think that's the fundamental challenge. And what Deutsche Bank brings up is just a perfect example of what happens when you allow the arrogance of speculators to take over and dominate the functions of governments. It's not that government is bad, it's that the bad people are controlling the government.
So how far do you think these bad people in government, people call them neocons, how far do you think they will go? Do you think they will start war if they don't get their way?
Well, they already have. What do you think Libya was? Libya was a destruction of a country that was actually succeeding and working with us in the war on terrorism. Look what we did to Iraq. Saddam Hussein was not a great man, but in Iraq you had women as presidents of universities. You had a Christian who was the vice president of the country, Tariq Aziz. Assad protected the minority communities, and we've attacked them. We've said they're not democratic. They don't go along with us.
See, and there you go, Esau with his oppression, his rule over the earth, man. His atrocious ruling over the nations, man. Because he said, man, his birthright, Esau's birthright, was he was given the sword, all right, to cover the dew of the earth, man. And he shall rule the earth with the sword, man. And that's what you have here. That's why you have all these proxy wars and all these things leading to World War III, man. Because the Most High is going to take them out, one and final, stroke, basically, man.
And what we've done is we've destroyed the institutions that were allowing those countries to improve and change. And look, we've been at war now for 15 years in Afghanistan, and look what we did in Ukraine, where we knocked out a democratically elected regime. The same neocons did that and used that
And you know what? And I'm gonna make this my last scripture because with America doing all this, all this destruction, destroying places, and creating coups, all the nations are going to come against America. And really that's the point of this lesson, man. That we see find proof that as we get closer to the end, man, these prophecies are taking place, and America's losing their allies. You seen that with Rodrigo Duterte, man. What he said about Obama, what he said about America, man. So, it's just more and more and more proof, all right?
That is the basis for a war drive to put NATO forces on the border of Russia. So, you asked the question, would we go so far as to going to war? We already have. We're risking World War III right now with the discussions going on between the Pentagon and the Obama administration, with full support of Hillary Clinton,